Live from a basement in Dubuque, Iowa.
I'll bet you $20 I can get you gambling before the end of the day.
30 minutes from the Field of Dreams and 4 hours from the closest professional sports team.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
On the banks of the Mississippi River.
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
It's the Degenerate Sports Betting Show with Matthew Freedman.
That's what I do. I drink and I know things.
And now your host, Matthew Freedman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Freedman, Matt F. the Oracle. Welcome to the Degenerate Sports Betting Show, brought to you by Bets TV and sponsored by the FTN Network, where you can get all the season-long and daily fantasy and sports betting content your degenerate heart desires, including my fantasy football write-ups and all of my NFL size totals and player props. Use the highly original promo code Freedman for 20% off your FTN subscription. That is Freedman for 20% off at FTN. Thanks for checking out the show. Subscribe to the Bets TV channel on YouTube and rate, review, and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. All right, it is Friday afternoon. Thomas, come on. Thomas Viola, psychic on the controls, connoisseur, pasta, titan of tomato sauce, Billy Joel junkie, long-suffering Jets fan. Tom, we have in this outline material from the Thanksgiving, show outline.
No. I looked through it, and as I was looking through it, I saw it's Friday afternoon, and then instantly started looking for week 13. And didn't see, like, I just was scanning for the 13, didn't see it, and went, okay, we're good.
All right, so it's Friday afternoon. It's Friday afternoon, which means that it is time for our weekly Propapalooza episode, where I'm going to break down my favorite. Not for every game, because the bookmakers have gotten lazy, but my favorite prop for a lot of the games that are on the slate. So, Tom, let's get into it. I guess first I should let the people know all of the tools that I'm consulting when I'm doing this. First, I'm consulting the prop table, Jeff Ratcliffe's player prop table. It's one of the best tools in the industry for helping you quickly compare prices across books and to see the edge that you have in any given bet based on Jeff's projections and based on what he is actually betting in the prop market. Also, I'm using the prop shop, which is Google essentially for all props and futures. If you type in the name of a player or a team, you can see all of the props and futures for that player or team at every sports book in the market. And I'm also using the site-wide projections that have been created by Jeff Ratcliffe and Kyle Murray. I should mention also that we have launched just this past week a brand new player prop tool, which shows Jeff's projections and everything across the market, and you can sort it by all of the different props on the market. So that's a new tool, very useful, very functional. Be sure to check that out at FTN Bets. Okay, Tom, let's get into it.
Indeed. Let's start off the first game we have on the board here, Ravens at Browns. And you like Devonta Freeman to tote the rock a little bit in this one, over 12.5 rushing attempts.
Yes, I got this at Caesars plus 105 odds. Since the week 8 bye, Freeman has averaged 13.8 carries per game. He's gone over this line of 12.5 in 4 of 5 games. And against the Browns in week 12, Freeman had 16 carries. We all know the Ravens, what it is that they want to do. They want to run the ball when they can. As road underdogs in a divisional game, I think they're going to lean even more into the running game so that they can keep this game close. So Latavius Murray, basically an afterthought in this offense at this point. Devonta Freeman, the clear lead back within the offense. 12.5 seems like a lower number. I think this should be closer to 13.5 or 14.5.
The next game you have up is Jags at Titans. And you're liking a bad day from Trevor Lawrence, which, to be fair, pretty solid bet. Under 216.5 passing yards.
Yeah, it's not even so much a bad day for Trevor Lawrence. It's just a typical day for Trevor Lawrence, shackled next to head coach Urban Meyer. That's what this situation is. But yes, I bet under 216.5 at DraftKings minus 115. Since the week 7 bye, Lawrence has averaged 174.8 yards passing per game with a median of 160. The Jaguars are incompetent. And the Titans should keep the Jags offense on the sideline with their running game. Now, the Titans, they don't have a good defense, especially in the secondary. So it's a good matchup for Lawrence. Presupposing that he's the type of quarterback and he's in the type of offense that would allow him to take advantage of a good matchup. And I don't think that's the case here. So I think the matchup, not that it's entirely irrelevant, but it's just not as relevant as people would probably expect. So I'm going under Trevor Lawrence, 216.5 yards passing.
Now, Matt, one of the keys that you have to some of these props that we've noticed over the course of 14 Propapaloozas here is it's not always about going for the big guys, the Trevor Lawrences, the Lamar Jacksons, the top guy in the offense. Sometimes the real value that you find is on some of these much, much lower numbers on these guys that are more role players and niche players, and you can just take a gamble on basically if they're going to be involved in the offense that day. And in Raiders at Chiefs, you're going just there with Demarcus Robinson under 16.5 yards receiving.
Yeah, I never met a backup tight end prop that I didn't like. And so, yeah, this is very much in keeping with that. We are talking about a role player at this point. I got this number at BetMGM -115 to Demarcus Robinson under 16.5 yards receiving. He has just 2 targets over his past 2 games. That's not 2 targets in each game. That's 2 targets over the past 2 games. And he's now beneath Byron Pringle on the depth chart. In weeks 1 through 8, he was more of a constitutive part of this offense. He averaged 33 routes per game in the first 2 months of the season. Since then, over the past month, he's averaged just 18.5 routes per game. He's just not really that important to what they do. And, you know, I bet this last week under 16.5 yards receiving. It didn't hit. Whatever. I'm going back to it again. I think the value is still there. Very comfortable with this bet. This is one of my favorite ones on the board.
Now, Matt, this next one that you have up here, the Saints are taking on the Jets, but you had on your list that it was Saints versus Bills. And so, unfortunately, we won't be able to use the fantastic Caesar Superdome wind line that you had in it, which is very disappointing because it was quite a good line. But
oh, that's unfortunate.
The wind clearly a factor last night in TD Bank Stadium where the Vikings play.
Yes.
Clearly a factor as kickers could not hit anything in there. The AC was gusting. Yes. Taysom Hill, though, over 187.5 yards passing. Whether they're playing the Jets or the Bills, that line still sounds like it holds up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great matchup for Taysom Hill. In part, you know, because the Jets are so bad. But in cold weather across the country, you have all of these outdoor games, and then you have within the Caesar Superdome a very good pass-friendly environment. And this number is too low. This is like a Tim Tebow type of passing line, like a Justin Fields type of passing line from the first month of the season. It's not that I think Taysom Hill is all that great of a passer, but you know, I think he has the ability to get here. And more importantly, so does Jeff Ratcliffe. In our new player props tool, the difference between our projection for Hill and his line of 187.5, that is the largest discrepancy among all of the passing yardage props on the market. I think this number honestly should be closer to like 215 or something like that. So I'm very comfortable taking over Taysom Hill, 187.5 yards passing, even though I screwed up in the description, in the blurb, the team he was playing against.
Come on, Matt. You can't screw up in the rundown. It is the most important thing to make sure the rundown is entirely screw up free. You know this.
Yes. Good on you for bringing it back to me. I deserve that. I do want to say, when I was placing the bet and when I was, you know, like looking at the projections, looking at the matchup, I had it right in my brain in terms of what the matchup was. It's just when I went to write it down, I got stuff mixed up.
Mm-hmm. Totally understandable. It happens.
You do not believe me, Tom. You do not believe me, Timothy.
I mean, I'm just confused because the way it comes in the rundown, it looks like you just copied and pasted it over. Okay, now I see what must have happened because you were putting it in the bet tracker. And when you put it in the bet tracker, you put Saints versus Bills.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
In that case, we'll have to go back and fix that in the bet tracker.
Yeah.
All right. But for now, we're going to move on to Cowboys at football team and Antonio Gibson. You like him over 66.5 yards rushing in this one.
Yes. I got this at DraftKings minus 110 odds. Gibson, I mean, he was dealing with the shin injury in the middle of the season. At one point, it looked like he might actually go on IR, but the bye came at the perfect time for him. He got healthy over the bye. And since then, since week 10, since returning, he has 24, 19, 29, and 23 carries in those 4 games with a range of 64 to 111 yards rushing with a average of 89.5 and a median of 91.5. Like, he's easily clearing this number in the games that we've seen. And with the usage that he's had recently, he could totally crush this number. Now, the Cowboys are favored to win this game. All of this usage has come within the context of Washington winning 4 straight games. And so potentially Gibson doesn't have as many carries in this game, doesn't have as beneficial of a game script, but I still think they end up giving him the rock a lot. And, a spread of 4 to 5 points, wherever it is that you're looking across the market, that's not that significant enough to make Washington abandon the run. I do think we see Gibson be fed the ball quite a bit in this game. And maybe at some point Washington has to pivot a little bit more to the passing attack, but I still think we see Gibson get significant usage, and that is enough to push him over this number of 66.5.
The next game up on the board is the Falcons at the Panthers, and you have a bet that you really like a lot in this one, don't you, Matt?
No, I absolutely do not. There are some interesting ones on the board, but really nothing that I'm betting right now.
Quite literally in the rundown, it just says meh.
Yep, that's an accurate description.
That's also an accurate description of anyone looking at that game and going, should I watch this or not?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't think there's going to be much that's really entertaining in that game, except for maybe DJ Moore.
Hey, Cordell Patterson.
Yeah, probably.
He's fun. But
I mean, the Panthers have a pretty decent defense. So, maybe they're able to hold Patterson, not like in check, but he just has like a decent game, not a great game.
Maybe. And also DJ Moore's got Cam Newton throwing to him, and you don't know how that's going to go yet.
Yeah. But he had Cam Newton throwing to him last week, and he still had over 100 yards. I mean, DJ Moore is having a quietly good season. Like, it started out really well. It's been sabotaged since then, but he's still number 1 in the league in 2 pretty interesting categories. Number 1 in first read target share and number 1 in end zone target share. So, like, he's getting targets that count for quite a bit. I would still be pretty enthusiastic about him entering next season, trying to acquire him in Dynasty, looking at him in redraft leagues, especially if they can get their quarterback situation figured out. But I still think that he's a pretty good player who's just, being sidetracked because of his quarterback situation.
He's the new Allen Robinson. He is quarterback proof in that he is still getting the yardage and the receptions, even though his quarterback situation has just been trash.
Maybe. I'm going to have to think about that analogy a little bit more.
We'll have to do a deep dive on this one and get back to it.
Okay.
The last game that we have props for on the board right now is the Seahawks at the Texans. Talk about games that are not going to be very watchable. And especially, we got Davis Mills at quarterback for the Texans. Neck Foles himself. And you're not sticking your neck out on this one. Under 220.5 passing yards for Davis Mills.
Yeah, this is a game that is really unappetizing. I bet this at DraftKings minus 115 odds. I mean, Davis Mills has averaged 250 yards over his past 4 starts. So that number, that looks fine. But I imagine that this is going to be a run-heavy game. So to put some context on those last 4 starts for Davis Mills, the Texans were destroyed, like soundly, like losing by 30 points in a game across those 4 games. Right. And so it was a game script where Davis Mills was going to be dropping back and throwing the ball more than we might expect if the spread is closer or if the game script is closer. And so Davis Mills playing at home, going against a Seahawks defense that is very friendly to running backs. I could see this being on both sides, really, a closer than expected, run heavy, low scoring game. So I think that means Davis Mills doesn't throw as much as we might expect. And when he does throw, he's Davis Mills. He's not going to be highly efficient. He's hashtag not good. So 220, it's not as if that is an incredibly high number, but I mean, I'm willing to bet under that given who he is and the game situation I'm envisioning for this matchup. So Davis Mills under 20.5 yards passing, very comfortable taking that.
Now, before we get out of here, one more prop for you. Odds Chase Claypool is still on the Steelers next season. Give me a number because, oh my God, what was that last night?
It wasn't great, but it actually wasn't as bad as people are making it out to be. Here's the thing. He was near the hash mark right there. Mm-hmm. So he literally did have time to do his 1 second celebration, turn around and put the ball right there at the hash mark. He wasn't as focused as he should have been. He shouldn't have done the celebration, but I think he wouldn't have cost his team that much time, if any time, if not for the center or whoever it was running up, trying to get the ball. And then they had a screwed up exchange, right? And the center was running up, trying to get the ball because he thought Chase Claypool was dicking around, which he was, but I don't know if it really would have cost them much in terms of urgency or time of possession, whatever. I think it would have been pretty close to fine. One more thing.
Okay.
It's one play. It's one thing. Yes. It's not great that he did it, but the Steelers put themselves in a hole where they were down by, was it 29 points? Whatever it was. It's come on, don't go off on one of the young guys who helped you get back in position to tie up the game when you pooped yourself publicly for the first half of a game and dug yourself a 29-point hole, especially because your defense, which is supposed to be the strength of the team, just allowed an injured running back to run all over them untouched for yards at a time. That was criminally embarrassing. And I felt this way for years, and this is stemming from the Jason Garrett Cowboy era. When players do something stupid, it's a reflection on the coaching staff. So yeah, he shouldn't have been doing that. But Bill Belichick's players don't do that. Put your players in the mental space so that they know when they are in certain situations what it is that they are supposed to be doing. Every player should know what they're doing in the 2-minute drill. And if they don't, okay, some of that is on them, but I'm putting more of that on the coaching staff.
I think that this locker room is a lot worse off than we know it is. Tomlin's always been good at keeping that stuff under wraps. I mean, he kept Antonio Brown looking like a normal person for a while in that system.
Yeah.
I think that he's good at that. I don't know if he still has this locker room right now, especially with some of the other comments that have been made throughout the course of the season, even by him saying that he feels like some of the players that are there now don't have the understanding of the standard that some of the old players are held up to, some quotes like that. But also Claypool after the game threw the lineman under the bus, and he just basically blamed him for it.
Yeah, he shouldn't have done that, but I mean, whatever. He's an immature guy, but he is still incredibly talented. Okay, you asked what are the odds?
I'd put it at a minus number.
Yeah. I mean, let's do you want to think in terms of percentile or in terms of actual odds?
Let's think in terms of percentile.
Okay. So I should have said percentages, but same thing. So, it's 85%.
Yeah,
I'd say
that's around where I throw it.
I'd say even maybe higher than that.
Mhm.
Like you don't give away a super talented player like that, just because he makes one mistake.
Yeah.
And so like if it's 90%, like the odds on that are like minus 900.
Yeah, they're pretty terrible.
You think that feels about right though?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. I could see Tomlin leaving. I still think that has potential to happen. But I don't see Claypool leaving yet.
Okay, let's flesh out this Tomlin leaving scenario. What do you think it is that precipitates his departure? Do you think it's Tomlin of his own volition leaving, or do you think it's the ownership group asking him to leave?
I think it is very. I think it's very similar to the Eagles with Andy Reid. I think it's a case of he's been there for so long, and they decide, you know what? Especially the way the locker rooms looked a little bit this year, we're getting rid of Big Ben. We're going to be bringing in a new quarterback. Do we want another 10 years of Tomlin, or do we want to try and go in a new direction now and kind of just have an amicable parting of ways, and maybe you get something back from a team like the Raiders in a trade to acquire him as a coach?
That's interesting. I mean, we've talked about this before, how the Rooney family is so committed to, to a couple of things, but I mean, really like so committed to continuity on the coaching staff. And I think they legitimately do like Tomlin. Like, I think they are committed to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's never had a losing season there.
But he also hasn't won a playoff game in how many years now?
Yeah. I know this sounds weird. I don't know if that actually matters all that much to the Rooney family. Like, because I think they just have a longer view perspective on stuff. Like, I think they would probably rather have a team that is perpetually not bad than a team that has lots of volatility.
They're the Bud Light of they're the Bud Light to the Patriots champagne, if you will. They're a dynasty when it comes to not sucking.
Yeah. Okay, I can buy that. Yeah. They dynastically do not suck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's accurate.
I will say that also. I'd say that also dings your argument before of that teams focus too much on winning the Super Bowl and not enough about making the playoffs and hoping for variance.
I don't think it does.
Because they haven't been able to win it since 2010.
Yeah, but like, how many times did they won it in the Tomlin era? Like, they've been to 3 Super Bowls with Roethlisberger as their quarterback. They won 2 of them. Like,
one in the Tomlin era. One was Cowher.
Okay, correct. One was Cowher. One was Tomlin. They went to a second one with Tomlin and lost against the Packers. Yeah. But like, that's pretty good. Like, a lot of teams would like to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's better than, I don't know, would we say like 28 other teams in the NFL over the past 20 years?
I suppose so, but also both of those Super Bowls. They lost the one in 2010. Was it 08 against the Cardinals? Or did they win one after that? I'm drawing a blank.
I would need to just go into PFR and look, but like they've won 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds about right. Because they had they won one with Cowher and one with Tomlin, and they lost one with Tomlin.
Yeah, they beat the Seahawks, beat the Cardinals, lost to the Packers.
Yeah. So all of that success came pre-2010. That's a long time.
Yeah, I know that's a long time, but I don't know. Like, I'm saying, like, the Rooney family, they think in terms of like decades. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, they've still been competitive for a lot of this time.
That is true.
I don't see them making a move off of Tomlin. Like, I think he would need to have more than one losing season.
I do agree with that. Maybe it's at the end of his contract that they start saying, okay, well, maybe we don't renew this. He's got like 3 years left on the deal.
And here's one thing, like, he's not the primary decision maker within a lot of things that happen with the franchise.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's not his fault that they kept Ben Roethlisberger as long as they did. Not his fault that they didn't draft other quarterbacks, you know?
Mhm.
I think he probably deserves more time. I don't see it happening.
That's fair. We'll have to say. I think it's going to be an interesting offseason no matter what, but it always is.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to wrap it up for us here on Propapalooza. Where can people find all the great work you're putting out each and every day?
You can find all of the content at FTN. On Friday, I published the fantasy football breakdown. It is already live on the site. On Thursday, the best bets article. On Tuesday, the fantasy football rankings, which I update on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And all throughout the week in the FTN bets tracker, I'm loading in my NFL size totals, and player props. And on Twitter, on YouTube, on your favorite podcast app, and on FTN, you can get daily episodes of the Freedman Fantasy Football Show and the Degenerate Sports Betting Show. And always use the highly original promo code Freedman for 20% off at FTN. All right, that is the show. You can find me and Tommy V on Twitter at Matt F. The Oracle and TV at Work. Thanks for joining us, and see you next episode.